Gregory Peck. Truly hated these actors. The most you won't believe who Gregory Peck was born. Eldred Gregory Peck on April 5, 1916, in La Jolla, California. His early life was marked by both privilege and struggle. Although he grew up in the beauty of Southern California's coastline, his childhood was complicated by the separation of his parents when he was just a boy. Raised mostly by his grandmother, Peck learned self-reliance and resilience early on, qualities that would serve him well in his future acting career. His youth also instilled in him a quiet dignity and seriousness that became trademarks of his screen presence. After high school, Peck studied pre-med at the University of California, Berkeley, but soon discovered a passion for the stage. It was during his college years that he became involved in drama, performing in plays and realizing that acting was not just a hobby, but a true calling. By the 1940s, Gregory Peck had made his way to New York to study acting at the neighborhood playhouse with Sanford Meisner, one of the most influential teachers of the craft. His tall, commanding figure, expressive face, and natural ability to convey integrity made him an immediate standout. Within a few years, Hollywood took notice. He made his film debut in Days of Glory, 1944, a World War II drama, and from that point forward, his career rapidly ascended. Peck quickly became one of the era's leading men, admired not only for his handsome looks, but also for the depth he brought to each role. His early work in films like The Keys of the Kingdom, 1944, for which he earned an Academy Award nomination, established him as an actor capable of portraying strength, vulnerability, and moral conviction all at once. Throughout the late 1940s and 1950s, Peck solidified his reputation as one of the premier actors of his generation. He worked with some of the most prominent directors of the time, including Alfred Hitchcock in Spellbound, 1945, and King Vidor in Duel in the Sun, 1946. He also starred in westerns, war films, and literary adaptations, showcasing his versatility. One of his most important films of this era was Gentleman's Agreement, 1947, in which Peck played a journalist who poses as a Jewish man to expose anti-Semitism. The film, controversial at the time, was a major success and reflected Peck's willingness to take on socially conscious roles that challenged audiences to think about prejudice and justice. Peck's crowning achievement, however, came in 1962 with his portrayal of Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. Based on Harper Lee's beloved novel, the role was perfectly suited to Peck's dignified and compassionate screen persona. As Finch, he embodied the moral conscience of a small southern town during the Depression, defending an innocent black man wrongly accused of rape. The performance earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor and remains one of the most iconic portrayals in film history. Generations of audiences, students, and even lawyers have cited Atticus Finch as a personal inspiration, and Peck himself often spoke of the role as one of the most important in his career. Beyond his professional life, Gregory Peck was deeply committed to humanitarian work and civic responsibility. He was active in politics, supporting liberal causes, civil rights, and social justice throughout his life. He lent his voice to issues such as nuclear disarmament, workers' rights, and freedom of speech. His willingness to use his fame to advocate for important causes earned him respect not only in Hollywood, but also around the world. In recognition of his achievements and integrity, Peck received numerous honors, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1969, awarded by President Lyndon B. Johnson. Peck continued acting into the 1980s and 1990s, taking on a mix of television and film roles, though at a slower pace. His later works included appearances in MacArthur, 1977, where he played the legendary general, and The Boys from Brazil, 1978, a chilling thriller about Nazi war criminals. Even in his later years, his presence carried gravitas, reminding audiences of his enduring talent. His final major role came in the 1990s when he appeared in a made-for-TV miniseries about Abraham Lincoln, another figure of moral courage. Gregory Peck's personal life, much like his professional career, reflected stability, dignity, and an enduring sense of commitment. Over the course of his lifetime, he was married twice, and both unions played significant roles in shaping his life outside of Hollywood. His marriages brought him not only companionship, but also family, grounding him in a way that balanced the intense demands of stardom. His first marriage was to Greta Kukkonen, a Finnish-born woman who worked as a hairdresser and later became active in charitable work. The two were married in 1942, at the beginning of Peck's rise to prominence as a leading man in Hollywood. At the time, he was still relatively new to the film industry, but his reputation was quickly growing, and Greta became a supportive presence in his early years of fame. Together, they built a home life while he was navigating the pressures of sudden stardom, appearing in one acclaimed film after another throughout the 1940s. Their union produced 3 sons, Jonathan, Stephen, and Carrie, and for more than a decade, they tried to balance family responsibilities with Gregory's demanding career. Despite their shared commitment, the marriage came under strain, as often happens in Hollywood, where long hours, constant travel, and public scrutiny can weigh heavily on personal relationships. After 13 years together, Gregory and Greta divorced in 1955. Although the end of their marriage was difficult, they remained united in their devotion to their children, and Greta continued to be respected as someone who had shared an important chapter of Peck's early life. Shortly after his divorce, Gregory Peck entered into what would become a lifelong partnership with French journalist Véronique Pisani. Their love story began when Véronique, who was working as a reporter for the French daily newspaper France Soir, interviewed him in 1953. At the time, Peck was promoting one of his films in Paris, and what began as a professional encounter quickly grew into a meaningful connection. 2 years later, in 1955, Gregory and Véronique were married, beginning a union that would last nearly half a century until Peck's death in 2003. Their marriage was marked by great affection, mutual respect, and a sense of enduring companionship that many considered rare in Hollywood. Véronique was not only his wife, but also his closest confidant and constant supporter, accompanying him to events, premieres, and international gatherings, while also building her own life as a philanthropist and arts advocate. Together, Gregory and Véronique had 2 children, Anthony and Cecilia, who grew up surrounded by the warmth of their parents' relationship and the cultural richness that Véronique, with her European background, brought into the family. The Peck's home became a place where art, cinema, and intellectual conversation thrived, reflecting both Gregory's stature as a Hollywood icon and Véronique's sophistication. Friends and colleagues often remarked on how devoted Gregory was to his family and how much his second marriage anchored him during the later stages of his career. While his first marriage had given him his start in family life, it was his second that endured as one of the most admired Hollywood marriages of its era. Gregory and Véronique's relationship was a partnership in the truest sense, one that survived the fluctuations of fame and time. When Peck passed away in 2003, Véronique was by his side, having shared nearly 48 years of marriage with him. Their bond remains a testament to Gregory Peck's loyalty and capacity for love, qualities that were as evident in his personal life as they were in the characters he portrayed on screen. Gregory Peck was known to millions as one of the most dignified, gracious, and gentlemanly actors ever to step in front of the camera. With his tall frame, commanding voice, and gravitas that made him a natural for roles of integrity and quiet strength, he became a symbol of Hollywood's golden era. Yet, like all men, Peck had his private opinions, and behind the polished exterior there were certain figures in the film industry who genuinely tested his patience. While he rarely allowed such personal feelings to leak into the public sphere, those who knew him well were aware that Peck harbored a quiet, smoldering dislike for a few of his peers. And when he did comment on them in private, he was direct, unsparing, and often surprising in his honesty. One of the names that consistently surfaced in conversations was Charlton Heston. Though both men were titans of the screen during roughly the same era, Peck viewed Heston's performances as excessively stiff and devoid of nuance. Charlton always thought looking heroic was enough, Peck once remarked with his dry wit. But acting is not about standing tall and flexing your jaw. It's about truth. And truth, I'm afraid, was never something I found in his performances. The two appeared in different types of films, Peck with his grounded dramas, Heston with his biblical and epic adventures. But their paths crossed socially and in industry circles. Peck, who prided himself on subtlety, considered Heston's approach more show than soul. Another actor who earned Peck's irritation was Robert Mitchum. They starred together in Cape Fear, 1962, a landmark thriller in which Mitchum played one of cinema's most chilling villains opposite Peck's stalwart lawyer. While the film was a commercial and critical success, Peck later admitted that working with Mitchum had been a grating experience. Mitchum had talent, there's no denying it, Peck acknowledged, but he was lazy, careless, and sometimes downright disrespectful to the craft. He preferred to drink, to gamble, to saunter into set half-prepared, and that was never acceptable to me. Acting demands discipline, and Mitchum thrived on rebellion. Despite his personal misgivings, Peck maintained professionalism during the shoot, but off-camera, their relationship was cool at best. Perhaps most surprising was Peck's distaste for Marlon Brando, the rebellious method actor who changed Hollywood acting forever. While critics and younger audiences hailed Brando as a genius, Peck found his style self-indulgent and unnecessarily erratic. Brando was brilliant when he cared, Peck admitted in later years, but the trouble was, he rarely cared. He would mumble his lines, disrespect directors, and treat the process as if it were beneath him. That was not artistry, in my view. It was arrogance. Peck, with his classical training and respect for tradition, clashed ideologically with Brando's unpredictable style. Where Peck saw professionalism as sacred, Brando often reveled in chaos, and that chaos irritated Peck beyond measure. A more personal dislike developed toward Frank Sinatra, not so much for his acting as for his behavior. Peck respected Sinatra's success as a singer and entertainer, but found his Hollywood reputation distasteful. Frank never knew when to stop being Frank Sinatra, Peck once said sharply. He brought the swagger, the entourage, the ego into every room, and that was exhausting. You cannot be bigger than the story, and Frank always was. While the two never engaged in a dramatic public feud, those close to Peck knew he avoided Sinatra whenever possible. Despite these strong dislikes, Peck rarely spoke ill of others in interviews, preferring to maintain a gracious, diplomatic public image. His criticisms, when revealed, usually came years later in memoirs, private letters, or candid conversations with trusted friends. He understood that bitterness could taint a career, and he refused to let his personal grievances overshadow the dignity he worked so hard to embody on screen. Still, the actors he mentioned most often, Heston, Mitchum, Brando, and Sinatra, remained the ones he truly could not respect or admire, no matter how much the public adored them. And so, while Gregory Peck stood as a towering figure of integrity in cinema, even he was human enough to dislike, to criticize, and to reject certain personalities in his industry. His comments, measured but biting, reveal a man who valued professionalism, truth, and discipline above all, and who could not abide those who, in his eyes, compromised the sacred art of acting. On June 12, 2003, Gregory Peck, one of the most admired and respected actors in the history of American cinema, passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 87. The cause of his death was reported as bronchopneumonia, a serious respiratory condition that can be particularly dangerous for elderly individuals. Peck's death occurred in the comfort of his own home in Los Angeles, California, the city that had long been both his professional stage and his personal sanctuary. His final moments were marked by quiet dignity, and he was not alone. His devoted wife, Veronique Pisani, with whom he had shared nearly 5 decades of marriage, was at his side. Their enduring relationship had been a cornerstone of Peck's later years, providing him with stability, love, and companionship after decades of a career often spent under the bright lights of Hollywood. Following his death, Peck was entombed in the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels Mausoleum, a grand Roman Catholic cathedral in downtown Los Angeles that serves as the final resting place for several notable figures. The decision to entomb him there reflected not only his prominence as an actor, but also his deep ties to his faith and his community. The cathedral, with its soaring architecture and peaceful atmosphere, offered a fitting and dignified place for admirers and loved ones to pay their respects to a man whose presence on screen and in public life had left an indelible mark on generations. The funeral and memorial services for Peck brought together friends, family, and colleagues from across the entertainment world, as well as admirers who saw in him a symbol of integrity and decency. One of the most poignant moments of the ceremony was the eulogy delivered by actor Brock Peters. Peters' presence at the service carried deep symbolic resonance. Decades earlier, he had played Tom Robinson, the black man unjustly accused of a crime in the 1962 film To Kill a Mockingbird. In that classic film, Gregory Peck had portrayed Atticus Finch, the principled lawyer who defended Robinson despite overwhelming prejudice and societal pressures. Their on-screen relationship had become one of the most enduring portrayals of justice, empathy, and moral courage in cinematic history.